And some of those facts I want to share with you now, but for clients that participated in the managed alcohol program at Seaton House, there was an increase by 138% of shelter stays, or somewhere for them to be, rather than the street. There was an 84% drop in emergency room visits. There was a 93% drop in detox nights, and there was a 100% drop in community prison days or incarceration days. What was quite interesting when we started looking at this and we started this project, we met with all the hospitals in the local area, and we met with the police, and we certainly met with community and social services about what it was we were doing. And we quickly figured out that it was, in fact, much more costly not to provide the services than it was to, in fact, provide them. If you can imagine, and I think you can in Vancouver because of the things that are going on there, that if somebody is intoxicated to a point where they're extremely intoxicated and they're down in the community, it's usually a response that's, at least here it was a response where it was sort of a three-tiered approach, right? You'd have the police quickly following an ambulance and the fire department. We tried to crunch those numbers a little bit here to figure out what that actually meant. And for us who were, maybe we're a little bit upset by this information, understood it to be about a $2,300 taxi ride to the local hospital. And when the person arrived at the hospital, they couldn't be booked in or admitted because they were intoxicated. And because they were intoxicated, they couldn't be seen by medicine until they were cleared by psych. They couldn't be cleared by psych until they were sober. By the time the person sobered up, they were leaving in the morning for the next drink they could find. And we kind of described that as a $900 ham sandwich, because they'd be given a bit of food and sent off to do it all over again. In some cases, we had as many as 4 and 5 of these occurrences happening per individual per week. So it was pretty clear to us that that wasn't making any sense from an impact perspective on the rest of the community. And harm reduction talks about, quite clearly, reducing harm to the individual, and then the added value of that is to reduce harm to the community as a whole. Well, this is a very strong indicator that by providing services like this, you can do both those things quite well. So there's real benefit to doing the work. The context I'm using is shelter, but it could be any type of sanctuary or home. There are all kinds of added problems around somebody's health that get uncovered through a process of allowing them sanctuary and meeting their needs, some of which is related to health. Our experience has been that people that drink a lot and sober up very quickly tend to have seizure-related disorders as a result of alcoholism. Those seizures are compounded and get to a tragic state of injury when people end up with head injuries because of the seizures that they're having because of the alcohol that they're using. So it was pretty obvious for us that there needed to be a strong concerted effort by all parties involved. But the main opportunity was to provide some residential stability to a group that didn't have any sanctuary. And by doing so, we were allowed to then integrate all of the services to reduce the overall impact of the community and to the individual quite successfully. If a person who has been living on the streets for 20 years and conditioned in that way, it's probably going to be quite difficult for them to change without any opportunities. In fact, I think what we do in some ways is we don't support some of the people that need the help the most. This creates a certain condition for people to not thrive in, and in fact, they don't survive it. If you're a chronic alcoholic for 20 years and you have nothing except your addiction, and you've lost everything in your life, including your family, your friends, your job, it doesn't get any lower than that. Thinking that people can survive that type of experience by pulling themselves up by their bootstraps is at best naive. And it just, again, people don't, they don't get through that. Over the last 15 years, we have lost in our program, with support, more than 150 clients through a death and dying process, which for us has been some of the most important work that we've ever done. People that have no help in the community or lost connections to their homes, it's kind of an honor to do that in a way, and I think that's really important. I have a kind of a special advisor who's about 90 years of age, and when I get stuck in situations at work that don't make any sense, I already kind of reach out to them to get some support around what their thoughts are. And the last discussion I had with that individual was that we have a heck of a responsibility. We were talking about people that we're talking about today, and she said that, don't people understand what's going on? And I said, well, Mom, I don't think they do. And she said, well, people are dying on the streets, and that shouldn't be allowed. And I said, no, I know you're right. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to help with that piece. And she says, well, that's the most important work in the world, to prevent people from dying on the street and to give people sanctuary and help where they need it, isn't it? And how is it that people don't understand that? And I said, well, it's complicated, Mom, but you're absolutely right. It's the most important work that we do. Not allowing people to die on the street is not only something that we need to do, but it's an honor, in fact, to do it. So that's sort of the thing in a nutshell, except there's some really positive things that happen as well along the way through this journey of ours. And that's people actually survive and recover from some of these challenges, this 20 years of alcoholism and 20 years of homelessness, to reconnect with family. In fact, we have strong indications now, and we're trying to get this information out for the world about what it is we're doing, but we've had a tremendous amount of success with people quitting drinking in a wet shelter, and that was something that nobody anticipated. I remember the early discussions about harm reduction and managed alcohol against abstinence, and I'm not sure why it was quite framed that way, but harm reduction is a part of a continuum of care towards people being better off in the end. And it's not whether abstinence is right or wrong or harm reduction is right or wrong. It's more of a continuum, because people given support will definitely make inroads into doing better. We know that because we've taken a whole population of people off the streets of Toronto who were chronic alcoholics and who are now thriving in their environment. Whether or not they quit drinking at the end of the day is a choice that they make and that we support, but oftentimes they do. In fact, when they do, there's great magic that happens for that person, and a reconnection to family and opportunities start from that point. So there's no real downside to doing it, I suppose, is my message. There are some challenges to getting it done,